My name is Katie Martinez. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, where I work as a nurse at the county hospital. What I'm about to tell you sounds crazy. I know it does. But I need to share this because Jesus told me to. 3 people have asked me this week alone, Katie, what happened to you? Because honestly, I'm different now. My coworkers see it, my family sees it, even my neighbors ask why I seem so more alive. It all started on October 15th last year. I was doing something I'd never really done before, a real fast. Not just skipping lunch, no food for 6 whole days, just water. I know what you're thinking, that sounds extreme. It felt extreme too, but I felt this pull, like God was asking me to do this. Day 6 was rough. I was tired, a little shaky, but there was this strange peace I'd never felt before, like my prayers were sharper. I was driving to my mom's house that morning around 6 o'clock. The roads were empty, just how I liked them. I had worship music playing softly and was praying about my brother, Josh. He's been struggling with addiction for years and nothing was working. Then everything went black. A guy in a pickup truck, completely wasted, ran a red light going 50 miles per hour and hit me right on the driver's side. The doctors later said my heart stopped for exactly 17 minutes and 23 seconds. But here's the thing, those 17 minutes felt like hours, and what I experienced, I'm still trying to process. 1 second, I was in my crushed Honda, and the next I was floating above it. I could see everything, the paramedics working on me, the drunk guy crying, even Mrs. Henderson from down the street in her robe. But I wasn't scared, that's the strange part. I felt more peaceful than I'd ever felt in my life. Then I started moving upward. There was a tunnel, but it wasn't dark. It was made of light, living light. It sounds crazy, but that's the only way I can describe it. The light was warm and welcoming and loving. When I came out of the tunnel, I was somewhere else entirely. I can't describe what I saw. Colors that don't exist here, music coming from everywhere, and light brighter than the sun, but soft to look at. But what caught my attention wasn't the beauty. It was the golden threads of light stretching from earth up to where I was, thousands of them, maybe millions. Then I heard his voice, Katie. I knew immediately it was Jesus. His voice went through my whole being, if I even had a body. I felt completely known and completely loved. I brought you here to show you something your eyes have never seen. Then he appeared in front of me. I've seen pictures of Jesus all my life, paintings, movies, stained glass, but none came close. His presence was overwhelming, pure love and power radiating from him. His eyes held such depth, like he could see every moment of my life, and he loved me anyway. Watch, he said. Jesus pointed to the golden threads I kept staring at. You see those? I nodded, unable to look away. Those are people fasting and praying right now. Each thread was someone on earth who had given up food to seek God. The brightest ones, those were people who truly meant it. Their hearts were pure. I watched one thread pulse brighter and brighter. Jesus smiled. That's Margaret in Ohio, day 3 of her fast. She's praying for her grandson. Most of my children don't understand the power they have, Jesus explained. When you fast with the right heart, seeking me and my kingdom, you partner with heaven in ways you can't imagine. Then he showed me my own fast, the 6 days I'd gone without food. Each day had formed a stronger connection between heaven and earth, like watching a muscle grow with every repetition. But here's what really blew my mind. Jesus took me to this place he called the Halls of Time. I saw Moses during his 40-day fast when he received the 10 Commandments, but now I could see what was happening in the spiritual realm. His fasting had literally created space for God's glory to appear in a way that let him receive those commandments. I saw Daniel during his fasts and how his fasting pushed back dark spiritual forces over entire regions. I saw countless people throughout history whose fasting shifted spiritual atmospheres and changed events they never even knew about. Katie, Jesus said, I'm showing you this because my church is entering a season where understanding fasting will be crucial. The battles ahead can't be won through regular prayer alone. I didn't know what to say. Then he showed me something that made me cry. I saw what happened when groups of believers fasted together. It created what looked like spiritual storms of power. These combined fasts generated momentum that could shift entire atmospheres over cities and nations. But daughter, Jesus said, his voice now serious, not all fasting carries the same weight. He showed me different types of fasting. Fasting done for show or just out of religious habit had almost no impact. But fasting done with humility, real repentance, and a pure desire to know God created powerful spiritual dynamics. Then he showed me something that surprised me. Fasting actually changes our spiritual DNA. When we fast, our spiritual senses are sharpened, and extended fasting creates new pathways that increase discernment and authority even after it's over. Many of my children see fasting as a way to get me to do something, Jesus explained. But fasting isn't about convincing me. It's about positioning yourself to partner with what I'm already wanting to do. When you fast, you tune your spiritual frequency to heaven's frequency. What Jesus showed me next was intense. I saw believers who were fasting, and they looked like they were wearing extra armor. Their prayers during fasting were like precise spiritual weapons, hitting their targets with accuracy and power. But there was a warning too. The enemy targets people during fasting because he knows its power. Protection during fasting is crucial, Jesus said. Stay under the cover of my blood and my word. Don't fast in your own strength. Then Jesus showed me how fasting relates to spiritual authority. Each day of sincere fasting increased a believer's authority in prayer and warfare. It was like watching someone get promoted in heaven's army. Their words carried more weight, and their prayers had greater effect. Remember, Jesus said, this authority isn't earned, it's granted. Fasting positions you to carry greater authority, but the authority itself comes from me. One of the most beautiful things Jesus showed me was how fasting affects worship. During fasting, our worship carried a special fragrance in heaven. The sacrifice of fasting added something precious to our prayers and praise. When my children worship while fasting, Jesus said, it creates a unique harmony with heaven's worship. Then he showed me something that made me understand why he'd called me to fast for my brother, Josh. I saw how fasting breaks dark chains in the spiritual realm, chains of addiction, generational curses, and oppression. When someone fasts and prays with faith and pure motives, those chains begin to weaken and break. I cried, realizing God had been preparing me to fight for my brother in a way I never knew was possible. Then Jesus showed me something that brought me to tears again. Our fasting partners with his ongoing ministry of intercession. When we fast, we join him in his work in a special way, and this partnership brought him real joy. Katie, he said, when my children fast with pure hearts, it moves my heart. It's not about earning my love, you already have that. It's about partnering with my purposes in deeper ways. Jesus showed me how fasting creates spiritual bridges connecting different aspects of God's work, forming highways for his power to flow. He showed me how fasting affects our spiritual inheritance too. As we fast, we clear away debris from wells of inheritance, letting those ancient springs flow again. Some people's fasting restores access to blessings that have been blocked for generations. Then Jesus showed me something about fasting and spiritual multiplication. When we fast with pure hearts, God often multiplies the impact far beyond what we can imagine. One person's faithful fasting could affect an entire community, creating ripple effects that last for generations. The spiritual results of fasting often go far beyond what we can see. Sometimes the greatest fruit of your fasting will only be seen in eternity, Jesus said. He showed me how fasting relates to spiritual timing too. Sometimes God calls us to fast, not for immediate breakthrough, but to prepare us for something coming. Fasting strengthens people spiritually before they even know they'll need that strength. In the times ahead, Jesus said, many of my children will need to fast preemptively, not just in crisis, but in preparation for what I know is coming. As my time in heaven was ending, Jesus gave me one final understanding. We're entering times where knowing the power of fasting will be more important than ever. God is calling his people back to biblical fasting as preparation for what's ahead. Tell them what you've seen, Jesus said. Tell them I'm calling my church back to biblical fasting. The time is short, and my people must understand these truths. Just before everything began to fade, Jesus looked at me with such love that my spirit felt like it would burst. Remember, he said, the power isn't in the fast in itself, it's in me. Fasting positions you to partner with what I'm already doing. The next thing I knew, I was back in my body in the hospital. The medical staff couldn't believe it. Not only had I come back to life after being dead for over 17 minutes, but I had no brain damage or lasting trauma. The doctors called it a miracle. They were right, but they didn't know the half of it. 3 months later, something even more incredible happened. I was in my bedroom praying and fasting again, this time for 7 days. No accident this time, but the doctor said I had an unexplained cardiac event. My heart stopped for 4 minutes and 12 seconds. In those moments, I was transported back to that realm of living light. Jesus was there again, his presence overwhelming but tender, like a friend eager to share a secret. "Katie," he said, "I've brought you back to show you the fruit of what you've learned." Suddenly, I saw the spiritual impact that had happened since I began sharing my testimony. Streams of light were multiplying across the earth. Each light represented someone who had begun to understand and practice biblical fasting because of what Jesus had shown me. "Watch," he said, and I saw lives changing, addictions breaking, healing happening, relationships being restored, all through the combined power of prayer and fasting. What touched me most was seeing the intimate moments between these people and Jesus during their fasts. Each sacrifice of food created sacred space for deeper communion with him. "Do you see?" Jesus asked. "What I showed you wasn't just for you, it was for my beloved church. Every truth you've shared has planted seeds that are now bearing fruit." Then he showed me something that made me cry again. Every time someone practiced these truths, it created a ripple effect that touched generations. These ripples were turning into waves of revival, preparing the way for something greater. "The days ahead," Jesus said, "will require my people to walk in spiritual authority like never before. What I showed you about fasting isn't optional. It's essential preparation for what's coming." He revealed how the growing understanding of fasting was creating a new spiritual force in his church. As more believers practiced biblical fasting, their combined authority was pushing back darkness in unprecedented ways. "Tell them again," Jesus said, "but this time tell them with the authority of one who has seen the fruit. Tell them I'm calling my church back to biblical fasting, not as a duty, but as preparation for the greatest outpouring of my spirit they've ever seen." Just before everything faded, Jesus gave me one final message. "Tell them I'm not calling them to fasting to earn my love. They already have that completely. I'm calling them to fasting because I want to entrust them with my power. The darkness is increasing, but through prayer and fasting, my light in them will shine brighter." When I returned to my body the second time, I knew even more clearly why God had allowed me to see these things. The second experience left me with a deeper conviction. Jesus is calling his church to rediscover the power of biblical fasting, not to manipulate God or earn favor, but to position ourselves to partner with heaven in these crucial times. My brother Josh, he's been clean for 8 months now. The breakthrough came during my third extended fast after these encounters. Coincidence? I don't think so. The question isn't whether Jesus is calling us to fast. He is. The question is, how will we respond? If you're hearing this, it's not by accident. Jesus is inviting you into a deeper understanding of fasting, not as a religious duty, but as an opportunity for profound partnership with heaven. The spiritual realm is more real than what we see with our eyes. Through biblical fasting, we can partner with heaven in ways that will impact generations. The time is now. Jesus is calling, and he's waiting for his church to answer.